Well, we got, I don't know if anybody is there, but I'm going to bring it back up to see if people can get it if they want to. So supposedly, this is now available for remote viewers. So go ahead. And you want, do you have something projected on a computer or what?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can you do it on this one or? Yeah, it don't matter. I don't think we have any. I don't think we have any remote viewers anyway. So just go ahead. Let's hear it.
Is this HDMI out? I can just bring it up on this.
Yes, if you want to project, it's right here.
Okay.
Go ahead and pull it out. Doesn't matter.
Is it? Oh, but it's micro HDMI.
The what?
I can just do it on this, I think.
Oh, okay. So do it on that. Even better. All right, good, good. Then it will actually be recorded and stuff. Okay.
If I'm figuring this out right. Hang on, Sam. Can I get a private browsing window?
Get what?
Private browsing window?
Private browsing, yeah. New, sure, good. That's good thinking. Frequently, people use my machine and I end up logged into their Gmail, so that could happen.
Let's see.
How you doing? You look different. You got your hair or something. Oh yeah, that might be it. Me too. Good.
Yeah, so yeah, the presentation's on Phishing basic authentication prompts. In essence, a phishing attack is attempting to trick a user into giving up sensitive information by posing as a trusted person via email or other electronic means. So the message that the author was writing in this article was, if people are asking for your authentication, who are they, and where does this request go and come from? What happens to the input? So there's 2 security indicators they detail that you should watch out for as a user, which is the IP address or domain that you're looking at. So I'll give an example of the address bar and making sure you're on google.com and such. And the authentication parameter realm is just a string that's provided on the dialog box when you're submitting your authentication. But then is that really foolproof? And it's not, because you can register domain addresses that are similar, so that you'd have to really pay attention to the addresses that you're visiting. So you can, like an example I gave was facebook.com could be face-book.com, you may have seen, or any one of those examples. Something similar you may not notice when you're clicking on links. And that authentication parameter realm string can be manipulated, so you can create a dialog box asking for credentials and make it seem very convincing, like you've been logged out to do an activity. And the first thing on your mind is that you really want to see your email or whatever account it may be, so you're not thinking about verifying who's asking and where that's going to. So they gave methods of exploitation for the HTML code that you would have. There's 3 different ways, or examples they gave. One is just an HTML tag, so instead of sourcing an image, you're sourcing a script on a domain that you control. So any given website that you can manipulate or edit HTML on, you can place these kinds of prompts to get users information. Another one was HTML anchors, so that when you click on a link, it'll bring up that dialog box asking for your authentication without actually changing the address bar URL. So it still seems like you're on google.com, whatever it may be, but you're getting an authentication prompt that's sending that login information to the attacker's domain. The third and final one was another method of HTML, which is when you're opening a new tab or a new window, that it would still open that tab, but like again, it would still inherit the domain of the address that you're visiting initially. So again, it's kind of, unless you pay really close attention to what's happening, it's easy to deceive yourself into thinking that you're on a trusted domain and the trusted domain is receiving this authentication. The author said that the best things you could do is to not allow users to add images and links to your website. And you should pay attention to the URLs and IP addresses as much as you can. And like what other like popular sites like Facebook does is they have wrappers for external links, local URLs. So if you've ever seen on Facebook that when you click on a link, it says that there's an interim webpage saying that you are now leaving the domain of facebook.com. So be aware that everything you see may not be as you think it is, so to speak. So you make your users aware of the risk as they're leaving your domain. And then hopefully that'll prevent that from happening. And then going forward, I'd like to see what this does on mobile devices, because the author had said that on most mobile web browsers, you only see the name of the web page you're visiting. You don't actually see the address bar. It doesn't display the address bar so much when you're loading the web page. It'll just say Facebook. It won't say facebook.com. It won't actually detail the domain that you're on. So it may be even easier on mobile devices to trick people into thinking that they're in the right place.
And is that because we just have like a much smaller limited space on a mobile device?
I think so. I think it's just how they choose to present it in the language of the application. They also said in the article, do you want to? Oh, I was just saying it's interesting, the article. That's why I want to do the demo. I haven't done yet, flesh that out. But they said that there's like certain browsers have different behaviors. Like Chrome, for example, won't load that dialog box or the basic authentication prompt when it's linking to something else. But Firefox, Edge, Internet Explorer do. And I think Safari as well. So, I mean, Google has at least thought of this in the behavior of their web browser to some extent. You were saying?
Earlier you said users.
Mm-hmm.
Which users don't do blah, blah, blah. So you're talking to respect to someone who's writing the website?
Yeah.
This whole presentation?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If someone could manipulate the HTML on your website, whether it's like user submitted content and you don't have the proper filtering or you don't like have those wrappers, then people can just post a simple image source link, which I can put back on.
Someone can edit your website?
In like the comments field or something.
So you could, like, if you're allowed to post HTML code, you can, I don't really have that example, but you can.
Some websites do allow you to use this.
So if you, and it's even works apparently on BB code and stuff like that, or even in Word macros, this will all come up and still work and ask you for that stuff.
So somebody can go on your website, access the code, there's those who go in there.
Well, that's if they hack the server. But most people let you post comments, or Facebook lets you put things on your wall and so on. And those are also content that came from the user. And a lot of people want to put in videos, Twitter does. So it's a problem.
Is it also like you can buy advertising space on a domain and then they'll give you space that you can put your own code?
There's actually a lot of ways to put code on somebody else's site, even if you don't hack them.
Yeah, you just have that
You
code.
can, of course, also hack them, and that happens too. But the most common thing is just put it in the comments, put it in the ad.
That's cross-site scripting, right?
Well, cross-site scripting is one of the attacks you can use once you get the ability to put content.
Okay.
But yeah, cross-site scripting is one of the common ones.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's in essence what
That's
what
great.
I've done so far.
Well, thank you. And that's a fine example of what you should do. That's a good 5-minute presentation. Yeah.
Joshua, do you have the link to the original article?
Yeah, it's right here on the bottom of this, and it's on the first page too.
Yeah, if you send me a link, I'll put it on my website.
Okay, but yeah, it was in the
Maybe
initial
just this
email.
presentation.
Okay.
I'll put it up there.
Okay.
And it's going to be in the recorded video now too. This is great.
That's very good.
Yeah. And that's what you showed me. That's all you got to do is 3 presentations like that. All right.
Thank you.
Sure. So, you want to go now, Liz?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, just take over. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I don't know what all you've covered so far about CPTC, so.
You got a different perspective on it anyway.
And I only have like one slide, so.
Okay.
Hey, grab your display
If you
port.
open it up on that thing, then it'll be recorded.
Okay.
You wanna
I may
email
just
it?
grab your display port because it's just one slide. So,
Okay.
that I just killed.
What I can do is turn it back to the camera and get a picture of it.
Okay. I can email it to you too.
Okay,
I'll
let's.
just do that.
All right, that's
That'll be
fine. Let me get my
easiest.
email up here. Get this junk out of the way. All right. All right.
should be in your Gmail,
All right.
your regular Gmail.
That's the only Gmail I got, and there's nothing there. Maybe it takes a while. City College. Oh, they're good. All right, good. There you go. Okay. Have at it. Good.
Yeah, so there's just one slide for this. So what do you guys know about CPTC so far? Okay. Well, I know somebody in this classroom knows about CPTC. Something about it. Yes, it is a competition. That's true. Does anybody else know anything about CPTC? You come on, you guys want to do it. You guys don't know. You guys don't know anything about it. Yes. Yes. So yes, it's a pen testing competition. Is everybody familiar with that term, with pen testing? Basically, that just means penetration testing, and what you're trying to do is get into some systems. Now, in the instance of CPTC that we participated in last year, it was a fake hospital called Gotham General Hospital. Like, obviously, some Batman fans on the team who are putting it together. So, they were really, really thorough. These guys spent months and months, who are professional security engineers, spent months and months putting this elaborate fake hospital together for us to test against. And it was really fun. I had no idea what I was doing when I went into it. I'd done Pico CTF, and that was about it. But I learned a lot doing it, and I think this next year is going to be really awesome. Hopefully we'll make it past the qualifiers and get into the nationals. So this contest was interesting because it doesn't all take place on site. We were there in Rochester for like 3 days, and but the contest starts way before then. So they put out what's called a request for proposals. Now, companies will do this when they want to hire consultants to do something for them. In this case, it was the hospital putting out a request for companies to penetration test all of their systems and networks. So one of the first things you have to do as a team is write up a response to this RFP. And basically you pretend, your college team, you pretend like you're a consulting company. And so you need to research like formats of ways to properly write this response, because that's part of your score. So you write a response to them and you tell them what you're going to do. You tell them what you're going to test. You tell them the basics of how you're going to do it and what you might find. So what you think you might find. So then you send that in, and then the fun really starts, because who knows what enumeration is? Who's ever heard that term, enumeration? Okay, can somebody tell me just a brief?
I think it means to identify something.
It does. It's exactly right. Like, you start a process of what's called OSINT enumeration. And OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence. And that's one of the things I put up here on the things we need to practice to get ready for it. So with regard to OSINT collection, which again is Open Source Intelligence, that just means, what can you find on the internet about this company? What can you find out about these people? Well, they went all out. They made fake LinkedIn profiles, fake Twitter profiles. They made websites for the company. And one of the things that you're supposed to do is start doing research on whatever you can find. They also made a whole elaborate IVR, which stands for Interactive Voice something. It's basically a phone tree for a corporate, like when you call PG&E or whatever, you have to dial through 10 layers of phone menus to get to a person. Same thing, but they actually hid a clue in there. So it's not just the networks that you're testing against. Basically, the contest starts as soon as you get that RFP out and you start writing your response and you start looking for stuff on the internet. So
there's quite a bit of social engineering.
Well, now, yes and no. Social engineering in general is out of scope for the competition. However, doing some ahead of time, like we made our own fake LinkedIn profiles to interact with theirs, and stuff like that is okay. But they don't want you, they have a very clear, defined set of rules, and you can always ask if you're unclear on stuff. But that's something that they want you to do. And something I should mention early on here is that all of the teams only found less than a third of the findings in the whole competition. All the teams put together found less than a third of the findings that were available. So they really get intricate with seeding this with stuff for you to find. And we, the more we step our game up, the more stuff we should be able to find. So Nmap. Who knows what Nmap is? Who's ever used Nmap in here? Awesome. That is another key part of our enumeration strategy. So that is something that we need to get. Nmap and Metasploit, we need to be able to do on our sleep. Like, those are two of your most used utilities for this competition. Web app exploitation. Now they put up a vulnerable website with stuff for you to find beforehand. And I think that they will get even more elaborate with that this year. So that's something that you really need to kind of get on your game with, and it's becoming more and more of an issue now, just in the world at large. So a lot of the stuff is OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. So a lot of the stuff isn't super complicated, but you do have to know where to look, and you have to be able to research things really quickly. And then the second half here is some kind of not totally technical stuff. Oh, and before I move on to that, the last thing on the list up there, AWS, the whole topography was hosted on AWS, and there were different aspects of that you could exploit. And so you need to be able to have some kind of idea. Like, it's a rabbit hole. AWS security is that, I mean, you could spend a year learning that and still not know everything about it, but there are a lot of things that you can, they don't make this super, super hard mode because they know it's for students. So there's a lot of stuff that you could find out now and get good at and be able to use in the competition. So second half of my list here of stuff to practice is more soft skills type of things, but they're equally as important as the technical stuff. Team communication's huge, because you can't use Slack and you're under a really limited amount of time. So you have to get really good at talking to each other and working together as a team on the fly. And also, I don't know, we may need to set up some other, not being able to send stuff back and forth really kind of hinders your speed in some aspects. So
You do IRC.
we may, well, I was getting to that. That's something that we're going to have to ask and see if we can do this year, because basically you have to clear every single tool you use with them. You can't use, you can't go, you're not allowed to bring anything in there except for paper notes. You can't bring in any computers, no devices, no drives, nothing. The only scripts you can use that are pre-done have to be publicly available, and they make pains to tell you that that doesn't mean publishing it the night before on GitHub and making it public. But yeah, so team communication. Next one is playbook. We've got to get our playbook together. We should start writing that today, hopefully, because that's going to be crucial. That's going to be how we're going to stay organized and how we're going to know what all we have to do and do it quickly. And then, you know, everything, there's a lot going on and it's very stressful. And so if you have something you can refer back to that's an outline for your strategy, you'll be in a lot better shape. Next one is process organization, and it goes kind of hand in hand with playbook. Like, everybody on the team needs to know their role, and we have to have like already established processes for what we're going to be doing. So hopefully we will have those processes established and then practiced several times, so it's just kind of second nature and you can do them on autopilot. Last one is important. It's report writing. So when you're a consultant and you're working as a penetration tester, your deliverable, like what you give to the client, is your report. So you have to get pretty good at writing reports that will cover your evidence and your findings that you've gotten technically and how you got them, but not, on the other hand, not be too technical, because they have to be readable by executives and project managers that may not be that technical. So it's a fine kind of a balance. And luckily they give you templates, and you can find, well, they don't give them to you, but the internet gives you templates that you can find and just adapt to your needs and then turn that in. But it just has to be really well written, really well put together, and that's a big part of your score.
Yeah. I just want to say the standard format for this came from Microsoft. You have an executive summary first that has no technical stuff. It just says, what did you find? And then you have appendices that are full of all the details. That's how you do it. Same thing for forensic reports.
Yeah, because there's definitely an accepted format to it, and that you don't want to, you want to make sure that you're consistent with that, and also that you're putting in. The other thing that we didn't do that we should have done is take the time to vet all your findings again. You need to go through and check them, because like one issue that we had was that one of our findings wasn't accurate that we turned in, and that hurt us points wise. So it's just like when you take a multiple choice test and you go back and look at all over your answers again, just to make sure that you were right. You got to do that again with this. So I actually have got to run, but that pretty much covers it all in a nutshell. There are a lot more aspects of it, and I'm going to try to come back this afternoon and work with the team and get everything started on the playbook and stuff. But it's definitely something that I recommend, even if you're not going to do the competition. I recommend studying for it and practicing for it, because you'll learn a lot just prepping for it. And you might want to do it next year, and then next year when you're ready and you'll be all prepared. It won't be like you're going in cold.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Anyway, in the spirit of these first two things, I just want to show you the attack that stole all the data from Equifax. I got both of them working here, although that people are not 100% sure that this is in fact how they hacked Equifax, but there have been several news articles that said they did it. And both of these are now written up in my 124 class. So let me bring up Kali. All right. And I showed one of them last night, which was the older one, and I just got the new one working yesterday. So let me bring up the instructions. If you want to do this in detail, it's in 124, and it is these two projects, Apache Struts. Apache, by the way, this is actually quite relevant to CCDC also. Apache Struts is one of these frameworks that is used for enterprise class websites. A lot of people pick on me saying my website is ugly, because all my website is plain HTML. And this is not good enough for a modern website. You make it look beautiful. Great. And yeah, maybe turn that off too. Anyway, let me show you what a modern website looks like. What I've done here is I've set up an Apache Struts server. That's what this thing here is. This thing is running Apache Struts on Ubuntu. Let me log into a student. And student. All right. And now do ifconfig. Okay. So there's my IP address. And this thing is actually running on 8080, so 172.16.1. Let's put it up here. 172.16.1, 198, 8080. There it is. All right. That's rude. All right. Just let's try, let me SSH in. By the way, this is mentioning if you don't know SSH, you got to know it. If you have a Ubuntu server, which is what I've got here, which is the same thing you'll get if you make a cloud server like on Amazon, it's headless. There is no mouse, no GUI. All you have is text-only control, because you're not supposed to be typing commands directly into the server. You're supposed to control it with a network service. And so the only thing I did type in here was to install SSH, apt-get update, apt-get install OpenSSH server. So you get in with SSH, and then it's a lot easier to use. So it's student, at that IP address, 72.16.1.198. Good, student. So I'm in. And now you can control it from this window. What? You lie. Okay. And now I can ask questions like, I wonder if my server didn't restart or something. Let's try netstat minus pant. And it is not listing on 8080. How rude. Well, let me see if I have any clue. Apparently, I didn't make it automatically start on startup. So that's going to be a problem. I have another one that I haven't shut down yet. So let me just see. Oh, there's a way to restart Tomcat at the end. And that's what I think I'll have to do. Tomcat is the server. So let me find it. There's a couple commands to restart it. And there we are. These are the commands that restart Tomcat. So hopefully all I have to do is that. In fact, all right, let's just put them both in. Doesn't hurt to. Okay. It's going to complain about the password. Okay. Okay, that shuts it down. Okay, now let's try startup. And it grew a slash on me for some stupid reason. Okay. There, Tomcat started. Okay, now, netstat minus pant. Now it's listening on 8080. Okay, now hopefully I've got the website to look at. Let's see. Yeah.
When you say shut down, you mean turn it off?
All I did was shut down the Tomcat service.
Sure.
Yeah. Now the reason why it wasn't already up is because I installed it and used it, and then I decided, because a lot of people outside the classes are interested in it, I shut it down all the way to make it small, to get rid of the virtual memory, and then I zipped it and put it up so people can just download and run it. Because a lot of people right now want to understand what happened to Equifax. And so they'd like to try this attack, and it takes an hour or more to build that server. It's annoying. Server-side Java is not friendly. And so if you want to use it, I saved that machine up there. So I'm going to actually have to add to my instructions, if you download my machine, then you have to restart Tomcat, because I did not make it automatically start Tomcat on startup because I'm pretty sloppy. I just got it working and called it a day. Anyway, here's Apache Tomcat running. And if you want to manage it, you go here to Manager. This will take you into Struts. Struts is an online management framework. And the thing about Struts is now, this is what almost everybody does on the web. That's why a lot of people are web designers and they maintain websites and they actually don't know much of a language and don't know much about servers, because they use these web panels like cPanel and stuff. And once somebody that is technical has installed this stuff for you, you can just use it. You make these WAR files. The WAR file is like a zip file that contains your entire web application, and you just choose a file here and deploy it. So I've already deployed a few of them, and these here are demonstrations for this product called Struts, which is a free Apache product. And so the one that was used supposedly to hack Equifax was the brand new one, which is only 2 days old now, which means bad guys have been using it for God knows how long, and somebody figured it out, and they only officially released the information to the public 2 days ago. But it turns out that a ton of people are using it. There's no way to notify them all, so now they're all scrambling. And this is some kind of online shopping, and this here is various orders. Bob has amount 33, Sarah has amount 44, and so on. And if you click View, this is what the URL looks like. And the point of this is what's called REST, Representational State Transfer. I don't know why people do this, but instead of having a standard way to move parameters up to a web server, there are about half a dozen of them in use. And so the REST is this. This looks like a server name, a folder named Struts2 REST Showcase, then a subfolder named Order, and a subfolder named 3, which would suggest that every time you make another order, it makes another folder on the server. And that would be nuts. That's not what happens at all. What it does is make another record in a database. This 3 is not a folder name, it's a parameter. And REST is the plugin that lets you put parameters in the path with a slash instead of with a question mark Q equals, which is what you normally would do in for HTTP parameter. And I have no idea why people want to put parameters in so many strange ways, but they do. And that's the module with a vulnerability, the REST processor. There was some way to put in malformed data in the REST processor and take over the machine. So now that I've got a working Apache Struts REST server, I can exploit it. And this is the process that you should be good at. If you go to Kali, let me just get out of this one. Okay. Okay, we're back to the beginning, make it bigger. Right. So if you want to update Metasploit, you just do apt-get install Metasploit. Again, it's in the, there used to be a command called MSF update. I'm not going to do it because it's slow, but if you're doing a new attack, you have to update your Metasploit first. I've already updated mine. So you start it with MSF console. And the thing about Metasploit is it makes attacks very easy, but not as easy as you might think, because there are a bunch of things you have to do to use Metasploit that they don't tell you. And so this one here, I was unable to do it for the entire first day I tried. Well, I only had a couple hours before class, but I couldn't get the new attack to work. And it was just because I missed one of the hidden parameters that doesn't show up in the parameter list. And there's a, so first, if I do search struts, this is the first thing you do in Metasploit. You search for whatever you want to attack. I know I have an Apache Struts server, so I search to see if there is an Apache Struts module that I want to use. This will find all the modules with the name Struts in it, and it's not case sensitive. It's very friendly. So this will find them. Now, while it's searching, let me point out from my project what would happen. When I searched before, I got this as my list of modules. They're all really old. The first thing I usually look at is the date, because that's a really fast way to tell if it's likely to work. Only one is from 2017, and that's from March. This is a 6-month-old vulnerability in Apache Struts that came out. And that one's in Metasploit. And my first project, which I gave my class yesterday, was to exploit that one, which is all ready to go. The new one is not yet in Metasploit. It is a work in progress. It's going through like beta testing by the Metasploit developers. And that one is linked by this article. It is that Dan Gooden put up. You'll find a GitHub with a pull request and a bunch of comments and a bunch of people testing it. But I went to that GitHub and I found out how to download it. And you download it with this raw GitHub user content link with this long hash in it. But you end up with this thing called Struts2 REST Extreme, which is a Ruby file. So the way you add another module to Metasploit that is not an approved module, you go find somebody, they're all written in Ruby, then you download it and you put it in this directory. This is what is recommended by people who want to develop Metasploit attacks. Make in your home directory a folder called .msf4 modules exploits and put it in there. And the reason you do this is so then you can easily copy it into the main Metasploit folders later. It is in a folder structure that resembles the folder structure of real Metasploit stacks. So when you do that, then in Metasploit, you just type reload all, and that will refresh the exploit list. And the exploit list will include all the default ones that came with Metasploit, and it will search in that directory for extra ones you might have added. So the next time you search for struts, you're going to find this exploit, and you can tell I didn't bother to really make the whole structure like multi-HTTP. I just put it right at exploits. So it doesn't completely conform to the Metasploit naming convention, and that's one clue that this is not an official Metasploit module. It's a beta test module that I added. So in mine, I've got it right here, exploit Struts2, because I've already done that to my Metasploit. Yeah.
So did you write the Metasploit?
I did not write it. Somebody on the Metasploit team wrote it, but it's not ready yet. It's being tested. So let me see if I can open the page about it. Yeah, this is it. Good. This is the page that Dan Gooden linked. Dan Gooden is a very good security journalist. He took these classes that you guys are taking. He took several classes here. And anyways, he had an article saying this is why he said you should panic, because the attack is out in Metasploit, and he linked this page. But it's not really out in a final version in Metasploit. What it's in is in this conversation about it on a pull request. This is somebody's proposal to add this to Metasploit, and now there's going to be discussion and argument and repairs and updates. He wrote the module. Here's the description of it. And the thing is, down here, this guy could not make it work 3 days ago. Then somebody else said he had to make a strange file to make it work. Then this guy had pictures of him, both in memory and Python in memory, and they are perfectly working. And then the conversation seemed to sort of die after that point. So I tried it, I couldn't make it work. But when I went back the next day after a good night's sleep, I noticed what I had skipped over here, which is up here, available targets. There's 4 different available targets. So apparently you have to change the target somehow to attack Linux. And I didn't know that. And let me show you why this confused me. And this is why I really think Metasploit is not as easy to use as it should be. Because these hackers that write this stuff don't think about how confusing it is for beginners. So you use that. My normal procedure when I'm using Metasploit is you type use to get your module, and then you type show options. And that will show you what the options the module uses are. And let me make it a little smaller so it doesn't there. This shows you, a little bit smaller yet would be good. All right, so here's my options. And the point of this is you see all the required parameters. You see whether they are required and whether they already have a value. Because when you do an attack, you have to fill in some parameters. And usually the only thing you have to fill in is our host. That's the IP address to attack. Sometimes you have to fill in more. So the first time I tried it, I filled in our host and it didn't work. Well, then I noticed this. This looks like the URL, Struts2 REST showcase. And you may remember my path is not equal to that. It has a version number in it. So I got to update that, which I was able to figure out too. That's the orders 3. So if I go to my browser here and I look at my struts, you can see it's actually showcase 2.5.12. So I can tell that I need to update that parameter. But when I updated both those parameters, it still didn't work, and that's as far as I got yesterday. But what I now see is, right here, it says exploit target 0 Unix in memory, which I thought is fine because I'm attacking Linux. It was only because I read the top of that blog again that I realized there's supposed to be more targets than that. And the way to see them is info. And I don't know why show options doesn't give you the same information as info. I kind of suspect that is the sort of thing that a work in progress will tell you. So there are apparently 5 different modules now. And since I'm attacking Linux, I guess I need to use ID 3. And I didn't know how to set the parameter. I tried setting ID and it didn't work. So I tried setting target and it worked. So this is the kind of stuff you need to know that they don't tell you. So I found the magic formula, which is not that complicated, but it was hard to find. And the magic formula is this. You have to set the target 3, set the R host, and set the target URI to the URI that really gets to your vulnerable thing, and then it will work, and that's all it takes. So like so many things, once you find it, it's easy, but I had to do a lot of trial and error to get here. And this list of options is not all the options you need to set. Yeah?
How do you know if there's struts on the website? See the URL for?
Yes. That's one way. The other way, now, if that's only because it's a demo struts module. The other question is, how do you tell that it's really struts? I think when you want to know what something's made out of, there are Chrome extensions that will tell you if it's WordPress or what. Otherwise, you have to deduce it, like from Nmap. There's a module I added to my Chrome, which does try to WAPalizer is what it's called, and it tells you what's running on websites, if it's Joomla, if it's and it does it just like Nmap by looking at the details of the code that comes down and comparing it to a database. WAPalizer. This is a very good question, and let me bring it up here. Let me turn it on. I've been turning off my extensions quite a lot as various things happen, but I do have them. So WAPalizer is here. And let's go back to here and refresh this page and see what WAPalizer. Here's WAPalizer. And WAPalizer will tell me that this is a web framework called Twitter Bootstrap, which is not giving me much of a clue. So I guess I don't know how you could tell it struts. Yeah.
What about just directory enumeration, or like nothing directories? Like, you know, do like a pair search, or I mean, like.
Well, you can list all the directories, but how do you know if it's using struts?
Well, it would have to return after you get requested to return a positive result, right?
Oh, well, I mean, you just run the exploit against every directory.
Yeah, basically.
Well, you certainly could do that.
Exploit, but this enumeration process of it.
But how do you tell if it's struts? I don't have any tool that will tell me it's struts.
Well, when you get okay. So, like, for example, this is Equifax 8080/struts2.
Yeah, well, see, the only reason this says struts is because the actual app I deployed was a demonstration app. If it was like Amazon, which might very well be using struts, that would just be Amazon.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if now a lot of these things it's actually visible in the source code, and others it's not. Let's see if anything here. Let's see if there's struts here. It's in the URL. Yeah, it's only in the URL. So it's actually a very good question. I do not know how you identify struts. I bet there is some tool, maybe Nmap, I don't know. It's a good question. I do not have a good answer. I thought Wappalizer might tell me, but it's not. Anyway, so the attack is here. You just set those three parameters, target, lhost, and target URI, and now when you exploit, it should work. Yep. So, and you should know the stages of Metasploit. First, it starts a reverse handler, which means it's waiting for communication. Then it sends up an interpreter session. There are different kinds of sessions. A shell session means you can execute bash commands like ls and who am I. Meterpreter is a special thing written just for Metasploit that gives you a different set of commands. It's somewhat more powerful. You can use a Meterpreter shell to open a normal shell if you want to, but the Meterpreter shell has particular commands that are helpful for hackers. And if you want to see them all, you type help, and you'll find them here. For example, the first thing you usually do once you've got a Meterpreter shell is you migrate to a different process, because whatever process you're exploiting might very well freeze or crash and do something obvious to the user. So you migrate to some other process that will just keep running. And on a Windows machine, you migrate to the explorer.exe process, because that's the process that draws the desktop. It's running as long as you're logged in, and it's not visible. But anyway, this is all in Ruby. I didn't know that. Yeah. Anyway, but if you want to know, make sure you own the box, you can do sysinfo. Well, let me get it. I'm not very good at remembering Metasploit attacks. System info, okay. System info, you're lying. I gotta spell it right. System info. All right. Why can't I run system info? Sysinfo, okay. Sysinfo. Right. All right, let's see, get UID.
Don't you go sessions?
Oh, I didn't open my session. Why, thank you. Okay, I have to do sessions. Interact, yeah, so sessions. I don't seem to have a sessions. Sessions minus I1. No, I lost my session. Wait, this one worked. I'm losing my mind. Maybe I lost my session somehow. See here, it took help. Command stager, enter, enter. And I don't have any sessions. All right, I think I have to exploit again. Let me exit. Session 1 closed. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Let me try it again. All I need to do is exploit again. Okay, now I get a session. Now if I press enter, I'm here. Now if I do get UID, I'm root. Okay, somehow my session hung up on me. Remember, all this stuff is sort of buggy, hacking tools. So I'm root. UID is 0, GID is 0, that's root. User number is 0. It doesn't say root, but that's what it is. And sysinfo gives me that I'm controlling my Ubuntu 16 Linux, so I've got control of the box as root. And you can do these various commands here, like turn on the webcam, and list the processes and so on. And you can also open command shell. So that's the point. You own the box, and that's what I wanted to show you. This is the latest exploit. This is the 6-month-old exploit. And in this one, the process is very much the same. Here, the only thing that happened for this one, and again, I had to actually go read the documentation, which is always my last resort. When I tried to exploit it with the default attack, it fails. And the page about the exploit warns you it might fail. Native payloads will drop. If this fails, try a CMD star payload. So you can do show payloads. So when you do show options in Metasploit, it gives you a list of options, and there are some missing options. The two I have learned about are target and payload, which it does not put in the list, but they're there. So if you do show payloads, you'll see the available payloads, and a bunch of them are CMD/something, and those are the ones that actually work. And not all of them work either. So like I say, this turns out to be very much like making a lot of commercial products work, where you run it, it doesn't work, and you have to Google and find blog posts and little tips here and there to learn how to do it. This is why for CPTC, you really got to practice using Metasploit, because it doesn't really work the way it should when you first try. You have to learn to overcome these little speed bumps. So when I show the payloads, I see some payloads starting with CMD, and I just tried several of them until I found one that worked. It was Command Unix Generic, but that one Now, if you show options, you have to have a thing called CMD, which is the command to execute. So I gave it a command to touch a file just so I could see if it was working. And when I run it, then I can look, and it's created a file called foo. So I'm now able to run a Unix command on the server. And so then I looked and found one here called Commandix Unix bind netcat, which will give me a real shell using the netcat command. There are a bunch of different versions of this because different versions of Unix have different commands, and they have different security settings on the commands. So even if it has netcat, netcat might not be able to do what you need it to do. So I tried a few, and this one then gives me a command shell, and this is a normal bash shell, so I can execute commands like whoami and ls-l, but you notice I don't see the prompt. I don't see the $sign or anything. So what you actually get is different for different exploits. Yeah.
So if you're attacking like a Unix-based target, what is a good process to migrate your shell to?
That's a good question. What process to migrate to on a Unix-based target? And I really don't know. It would be a thing to Google.
Okay.
Be where to recommend. I know it would be nice. There must be some equivalent of Explorer that draws the desktop. The way in Windows, there are a bunch of processes that launch before you log in, and those run a system, and those are hard to get into. You need system privileges. When you log in, Explorer starts, and everything you launch from that point on is a child of Explorer. So Explorer is a pretty good one. And I think it must be similar in Linux, but I don't know the names of those processes. Yeah.
Does Explorer still work?
I think it does. I think that question is about a headless Windows install. Like if you do Server 2012 or Server 2016, it often does a minimal install, Server Core. It's a command line only environment, but I think you still had to log in. And even the command line environment, like this Unix command line environment, you have still logged in, and there is some kind of process running to handle your text-only shell. So there's still an Explorer process running in headless Windows, I believe, although I haven't tested it. And there must be a similar one in Unix. That would be a good thing to find out, and I don't know what it is. I think it might be just bash. I'm not, now I really don't know. Any other questions? Well, I think that's it. And I think that's it for these presentations. I'm going to stop the live stream and recording, and then we'll just go to the lab and work on things. So next week, you may want to participate in Seesaw. And we have like 4 weeks to get ready for CPTC. So those guys should be working today and making sure they're getting their ducks in a row so we can do well at the competition. I'll see you up in the lab. I'm going to stop this share.
Weekend.